Deputy City Attorney Coate.
Here.
City Manager Harlow Shulk.
Here.
Commissioner Halliday.
Here.
Commissioner Dean.
Here.
Commissioner Logan.
Here.
Commissioner O'Loughlin.
Here.
Mayor Collins.
Here. Would you all rise? Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Deputy City Attorney Coate.
Here.
City Manager Harlow Shulk.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, the flag. Minutes. The regular commission meeting, May 3rd, 2021, and regular commission meeting, June 2021, were received. Do we have any corrections, additions? If not, the minutes will be accepted. Consent agenda claims. Madam Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioners, good evening. Mayor, I recommend you entertain a motion of consent to approve claims in the $590,586.93 from June 25th, 2021. I also recommend that you entertain a motion to adopt a resolution declaring various vehicles and equipment owned by the City of Helena to be surplus personal property and authorizing me, City Manager, to dispose of that property. And last, I also recommend you entertain a motion of consent to adopt a resolution repealing number 20595 that declared a state of local emergency in the City of Helena. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the commission?
Mr. Mayor, I have two questions.
Please, go ahead,
Briefly,
Commissioner.
the first one is, I believe I know the answer to this, but is the 2020 Ford Interceptor the one that got hit for the police vehicle? And then my other question was, is the county's declaration of emergency still in effect?
Did you get her question, Madam Manager?
Yes, I collected her questions. I thank you, Commissioner Dean, and Mayor. We'll have an answer for you by the end of the day. I do not believe that the county has removed their declaration, but that does not mean that we cannot go ahead and move forward with our own as a city.
Chief? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Mayor, this is Heather, Commissioner O'Loughlin.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I actually had the same question about the 2020, so I assume that that was an affirmative.
Would you speak up, please, Commissioner?
Oh, I had a similar question about the 2020 vehicle, and it sounds like it was an affirmative. I couldn't see, but it looks like there were nodding heads related to the accident.
Right.
Okay. And then I guess maybe a more general question to the city manager, and the recommendation to repeal the declaration of the local disaster emergency. Could you walk through sort of what are the potential pros and cons of this, and given where the county is, what are the potential impacts of repealing this, or what are the reasons behind it?
Thank you, Commissioner O'Loughlin. Mayor, the county, the greatest asset to the City of Helena in creating a declaration of disaster is it opens the door to emergency dollars first, and then second, the incorporation of any public health emergencies. And now, we're aware this last legislative session, the declaration of emergencies and the method of adoption by health of any implementable restrictions has been revised to allow for a second type of Board of Health, which it's not a Board of Health, excuse me, a second approval agency, which means that any restrictions by what would have been the public health agency are now required to be approved by the local government, or that's impacted specifically by elected officials. So there are two points to this removal. The first is to identify that we are no longer in a state of emergency in the city of Helena, and we are moving back to operations and activities in the community. That does not mean, though, that businesses do not have to or can have to remove their requirements. Much like any business, they could choose to require shoes and shirts and masks and hand sanitizer. Those are all things that are pretty common now in businesses. It does not remove that opportunity from a business for us to do by removing the state of emergency. And then last, the bigger picture is to the funding and whether or not we can receive federal funding is not impacted by our removal of the emergency declaration within the city of Helena. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments?
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Our original resolution declaring an emergency, I think, had a section regarding advisory boards, which through this time have all been meeting electronically, remotely. Are we anticipating that if we pass this tonight, are we going right back to in-person? Or are we going to continue the Zoom pieces out? I ask because I know we have a couple tomorrow.
Thank you, Commissioner, Mayor, and Commission. It does not remove the opportunity that is now in place for these hybrid meetings, and I believe that citywide we've all adopted this new method, and all of us have agreed, and you've directed that the teams continue this not only for our commission meetings but also for all of our meetings, including the boards. So no, it does not remove the opportunity for those boards to continue to manage their attendance as they choose to, either virtually or in person or hybrid.
Okay.
Any public comments? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I have no written public comment and no hands raised online, and it appears no one in chambers is here to make public comment.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, a question. Would you like the consent agenda items A through C grouped as one, or should we take them individually, or what's your preference?
We could go either or, but she grouped them, so I would prefer we just group them.
I guess I'll try a motion to accept consent agenda items A through C.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Do we have any further comments? Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Halliday,
Aye.
Commissioner Dean,
Aye.
Commissioner Logan,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Loughlin,
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Communications proposals from commissioners.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Commissioner.
thank you. Let me get regrouped a little bit here. So I think it was on the 17th of May that we had considered before the commission the district number 399, which I think, if I recall, the evening ultimately was denied. And in the time between then and now, we've talked about the idea of reconsideration of that action. And I guess I'd like to make a motion here this evening in that regard.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I would move for consideration the motion to reconsider the vote on May 17th, 2021, which refused passage of the resolution to create special lighting or special improvement lighting district number 399 in the city of Helena, Montana, and place the item for reconsideration on the next available regular commission meeting agenda.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Commissioner Zat? Okay, Madam Clerk?
So, Mr. Mayor, would you like to take roll call on that, or I'm unclear as to the direction.
Well, I could listen to discussion, commission discussion. Any comments or questions from the commission?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
I guess I just either a question for the Madam Manager or Deputy City Attorney about what the process is after this.
Thank you, Commissioner and Mayor. Commission, the next step is that we need to send out public hearing notices, including a letter like was sent out the first time. We'll also go out again, and then we will have the formal public hearing held on a final resolution creating the district. So it will go through that process. So the next available time that allows that appropriate public notice, the item will be placed on the agenda.
Okay, thanks. Do we have any public comments?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I have no hands raised and no written public comment. No one in the chambers appears to be here to make public comment on this.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded.
So would the motion be, Mr. Mayor, then for the reconsideration to
Right.
happen today? Okay. Commissioner Halliday?
No.
Commissioner Dean?
Can I ask a quick question? Mr. Mayor, can we, sorry, I was trying to interrupt. Tabled for today?
That's the clarification I guess I'm looking for. Are you asking to,
We're going to be, I asked the reconsideration of the item to be tabled until the July 26th regular city commission meeting in the interest of public notification.
okay,
So we don't need a roll call, is that correct?
I defer to the city attorney on that.
Mayor, Commissioners, yes, I believe that's correct. I think we should err on having public notice and a hearing and debate and discussion of the motion to reconsider at the next commission meeting rather than doing that here because this wasn't noticed on this agenda.
Right. Thank you. So, Madam Clerk, I'll restate what I said. Commissioners, I ask the reconsideration of the item be tabled until the July 26th regular commission meeting in the interest of public notification.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioners, I will work with the city manager on getting that on the agenda.
Good.
Can I ask just a procedural question?
Please, go ahead, Commissioner.
So are we placing something on the agenda without sort of consent of the commission?
So, Mayor and Commissioners, in order to reintroduce an item for a vote, the commission bylaws require that two commissioners who voted against the creation of the district originally must submit a motion to the commission to reconsider the action. So if the motion passes by vote of 3 affirmative votes, then the resolution and intention to create the district is put on a regular commission meeting. So what that involves is that so Commissioner Logan introduced the action. 2 commissioners who voted against the creation of it need to submit a motion. So all of you, except for, I believe, Commissioner Halliday, agree? No, I believe all of you. It was unanimous. So there was no opposition. So now we have
2 already, so.
yes. Now, if the motion passes by a vote of 3 affirmative, then the resolution of intention is put on a next regular commission meeting. So you needed 3. you still need to go through the roll call motion.
Madam Clerk, would you take the roll, please?
Commissioner Halliday,
No.
Commissioner Dean,
Yes.
Commissioner Logan,
Aye.
Commissioner Lachlan,
No.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
The motion carries 3-2.
Thank you. Report of this, report, any other discussion from the commission? Report of the city attorney, Deputy Attorney Eric.
Nothing to report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Report of the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I just wanted to provide a couple of quick updates for you. We are tracking down greater detail. We've received over 50 emails around citizens who want to see the Centennial Trail paved using funding made available from COVID-19. And today the team shared a map. Commissioner Halliday has flagged some question around some of the ownership. The primary point of the email out from the team is that the Centennial Trail is not completely and solely owned by the city of Helena, and completely paving it and requires quite a bit of work with private property owners, including. So the timing on the ARPA, the Americans, the newest set of dollars from the president that have been given to the city, those dollars have to be spent by 2024, and we don't believe that we would be able to spend or commit it by 2024. We don't believe we could complete the negotiations for all acquisitions first. Now, but second is whether or not that activity is something that could be funded by those federal dollars, and we do believe that they are not currently available. Now, there was for trails. That's something that we don't believe can be covered by these newer dollars. The other conversation that had been had was around revenue losses. And in conversations with our finance team, the method of calculation for revenue losses includes any new grants that were received. So those dollars that the city received in reimbursement last year from the state actually, as an entity, resulted in the city not having revenue losses. The count right now is of the entire entity, and the Treasury has not separated fund types like enterprise funds as being valid if in fact the overall entity did not have a full loss. This question is one of the primary questions we've been running down. Many municipalities across the U.S. and the National League of Cities is moving forward with a variety of questions for the U.S. Treasury on these dollars, and we, as I shared last week, are being very focused in making sure that we not only have all of the policies and procedures in place to adequately address these dollars, which are far more administratively burdensome than we've ever had, and then second, that we are being the most strategic in the deployment of those dollars against other opportunities for funding. And that includes this week the application cycle for the state's water and wastewater grants. So those grant dollars are available in a competition. We'll be putting our dollars and our applications in for several projects, and then whatever is not funded there will come back to the primary dollars, along with all of the ideas that have come forward, including the Centennial Trail. We'll keep it on the list. In Treasury, I don't know that they'll change their mind, but you know, stranger things have happened. So we'll keep those things on the list. We also owe an update to all of you on the potential items to be funded.
Right.
That's the first. And then the second item, today there was a mine that did blow out. It is below our water supply, but it is in 10 Mile Creek. There is a significant amount of contamination in the creek, and the team is watching for it. So it's good that it was below our water supply. It's bad that it could eventually reach our water supply. To make sure you are aware of the team's efforts to watch out for our drinking water. And then last, over this weekend, it was incredibly hot, as you all know, and we are watching daily our water consumption, and it seems and the citizens have done a great job of leveling out their use and watching that peak. So please, citizens, continue those efforts. I appreciate Mayor Collins, the interview that you did with the with the drinking water team, and sharing how the system works and where the water comes from. And the team is also working with the Conservation Board on a variety of information pieces, including the potential of a xeriscape garden out in front of the Law and Justice Center as an opportunity to educate the community on how to landscape xeriscape. So we're proactively doing as much as we can to educate, and we're every week watching consumption. Now, the other part of this last weekend was a significant fire, and those fires and the water used can be potable water. We're evaluating whether or not that potable water is part of our water system and how much of that we should be looking out for, and if there are options that we should be including in our larger master planning as well for water. So that's a quick update on drinking water and our water system overall. That concludes my update. Thank you, Mayor and Commission.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Manager. Any questions, comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Commissioner.
just a question in terms of us watching for any water contamination. What does that process look like? And I guess who are the people that start working on mitigation efforts?
Thank you, Commissioner Dean. This project, as I understand it, is one that is being managed by the EPA. The EPA is responsible, and they are working with the Department of Environmental Quality. We have called in the spill into the creek and understand that DEQ is monitoring it with EPA, but EPA is ultimately responsible.
Any other comments or questions for the manager?
Yeah, a couple on the Centennial Trail update. So there's the ownership piece and then there's the funding piece. On the ownership side, the big impediment is the portion that's owned by Montana Rail Link, BNSF. The city's been pursuing an easement on that since before Centennial was even constructed. When we originally approved Centennial Trail, it was actually delayed for a few months in the hopes that maybe the easement would get secured in that period of time, and Henderson Street Bridge could have actually been part of the original construction, or at least envisioned, and ultimately we had to pull the trigger without that. So that's 2014 that this has been going on since. Mr. Konopke, Mr. Young keep the MTAC and other interested citizens apprised consistently of sort of where that easement process is. Have we learned something new that makes us feel that now we're not going to complete that easement or don't have a hope of that easement until 2024?
Thank you, Commissioner. I can certainly request that the team provide an update to you on the status of the trail. I think it's sufficient to do that overall. I think it'd be better in the larger scheme of, since there's so many questions overall. So if you don't mind, I would love to provide to you instead a summary of the project overall from where we have ownership, which includes the county portion, that's the section of the trail that's in the county that we're doing maintenance on as well. So if that's all right with you, instead of doing the one question, provide a really good update to you in more detail if you'd like.
That's fine. I mean, I'm just curious. We have MTAC tomorrow. Mr. Riemann asks without fail, I think twice a meeting, if there's any progress on the easement. And I'm just curious whether I should let Wilburn know that we don't think BNSF MRL is going to get back to us before 2024. I think that's my major concern, given that we're being told we can't appropriate ARPA funds prior to we have to be done prior to 2024 sometime, and we don't think we're going to get there. That's my concern. So that I would love an update on Centennial, but that 2024 date I think would be important for people to know sooner rather than later. The others on the funding side of things. So I know people have said ARPA, and I've had conversations with people who have asked that question and told them that I don't believe ARPA funds can be expressly used for Centennial Trail, but we did use surplus savings, right? We've got money, I believe, from the $1.4 million that we discussed a few weeks ago to pave the portion behind the transfer station, if I remember our balancing act tool outcome. And so that still remains a possibility, right? If we used ARPA funds to pay for something that's otherwise already covered, or there's some savings somewhere in the budget that frees up general fund money, that would be a possibility, right? When people say a surplus.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, as are a variety of other projects, there are a great deal of citywide projects that have been identified, not only through the budgeting process, but outside of that as well. So all of those, and as I shared, Centennial will stay on the list. If, in fact, we see that a project that we've budgeted this year is covered by ARPA, then yes, that would free up dollars this year. The opportunity as far as the 1.4 million, I'll go back and talk with our finance director more about as to that there's a balance of 1.4 million being made available that needs to be allocated. I'll certainly talk about that. Are you discussing the general fund from last year? Is that what it was?
So I apologize. Sometimes
Yeah.
I mush my words together. So we appropriated about a $1.4 million surplus from last year a few weeks ago. Not saying that there's $1.4 million there now. Included money to the Housing Trust Fund. It included money to lighting on Rodney Street. It included money for downtown projects. And included in there, if I remember right, was money for paving behind the transfer station portion of Centennial Trail. I'd have to go back and look for certain, but that I was just referencing that as money that was used, freed up in the general fund over the course of a year based on CARES money at the time. And I was just, obviously, the commission's going to have to prioritize any surplus, but I just wanted to confirm that just because it's not eligible for ARPA funding doesn't mean that if ARPA funding frees up surplus, just like we did with CARES, if the commission prioritized it down the road, there's nothing that precludes surplus funds from funding Centennial. I just wanted to draw that distinction if I'm right about that.
Yes, that is correct.
Thanks.
Commissioner. We also, just to add another point of clarification, there's an additional grant application for some TA money with the Department of Transportation as well for portions of Centennial as well. So all of the trail itself and sections, the intention of having a map is to show which portions we're going to be working on, how those funds are, and which funds we're using, and so that it makes it far more clear as to what we could do and what we cannot do in the timing. So we're trying to work on a better set of data and information for you. But yes, that money would be made available if there were savings.
Any other comments from the commission? Okay. Now, where were we? Is your report, are you done? Thank you. Communications from the Helena Citizens Council, Denise Barber. Madam Clerk, do we have Ms. Barber? Oh, yes, okay. You have the floor, Ms. Barber.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the commission. I don't have a lot to report out since the June 29th meeting report out, but I did want to let folks know that the HCC is spending a fair amount of time trying to figure out how we can better, engage with the members of our district. We last winter produced some flyers that we dropped off in a small portion of each of the 7 districts. We have a small budget, but we don't have a budget for like individual members to mail to our residents, but we're just trying to figure out a ways to better connect with the members of our district. So just want to let you know we're committed to that and working on it. And that's really kind of it.
Thank you, Ms. Barber.
Thank you.
Okay. Public communications. Citizen Conservation Board.
Mr. Mayor, that actually is a holdover from the last agenda, so that's not applicable to this meeting. I apologize.
Thank you. Do we have any other further comments from the commission? Is there anyone from the public? Is there anyone from the public wishes to address the commission? Madam Clerk?
I do have one hand raised online, Denise Barber.
She was just on.
Hi, and now I'm just asking this as a citizen, not on behalf of HC. I'm curious about the mine spill. Like, what spilled? What are the chemicals that are of concern? And is the public going to be notified of this without being an alarmist either?
Go ahead, Madam Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm not sure if I see Director Leland. Oh, there he is. I'll turn it over to Director Leland, who can answer those more specific questions.
Director Leland, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, Commission. Looking at it is we are just seeing the color from the mine that went down. We do not know all of the sampling that had taken place. We just discovered that today and notified the EPA, the number, and DEQ of what's going on. So EPA was up there doing some work on the mine, so we have some ideas of what possibly could be in there, but I don't want to say anything until we get some of the sample results back. So we are not alarmists and get people to jump to conclusions. So once we find out the sampling results and information from EPA, I will give you an update.
Thank you, Director Leland. Do we have any other comments from the public, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I have no other hands raised, and I've received no written public comment, and no one in chambers is here to comment.
Any final comments from the commission? Okay, without further, this meeting is adjourned.